The Great Pyramids of Egypt hold far more than ancient stones. Modern science has torn a hole in our history books, revealing 30 hidden chambers concealed within these iconic monuments. By the end of this journey, you will know the full story of these secret spaces and what they mean for our understanding of the past. We will explore a cathedral-sized void detected by cosmic rays and a mysterious doorway sealed with copper handles. Why would the greatest builders of the ancient world go to such lengths to hide entire rooms from view? Deep within the Great Pyramid, a silent mystery waited for millennia. In 2017, an international team of scientists made a stunning announcement. They had found a hidden chamber so vast they named it the Big Void. This was not a discovery made with shovels or picks, but with particles from outer space. The researchers used a technique called muon radiography. Think of muons as cosmic rays, tiny subatomic particles that constantly rain down on Earth, passing through solid matter, much like X-rays pass through your body at a hospital. By placing special detectors inside the pyramid, the team could map where these muons were being blocked by denser stone. The pattern revealed an enormous emptiness. This hidden space is truly cathedral-sized, stretching over 100 feet long. Its location, directly above the Grand Gallery, is incredibly significant. The Grand Gallery is a magnificent, sloping corridor that leads to the king's chamber, and it is an architectural marvel in its own right. So why would another immense structure be built directly above it? One leading theory suggests it is a relieving chamber, a space designed to distribute the colossal weight of the pyramid's upper layers and prevent the Grand Gallery's ceiling from collapsing. Yet, its sheer scale and deliberate isolation raise deeper questions. Why build a chamber of such grandeur only to seal it off completely from the known passages below? There are no corridors leading to it, no shafts, no visible entrances. It is a room built to be forgotten. This deliberate inaccessibility is what transforms it from an architectural feature into a profound enigma. What was its true purpose, and what, if anything, remains inside? The Big Void stands as a silent challenge, a secret locked in stone, reminding us that the world's most studied monument still has its deepest secrets intact. While the Big Void remained a distant secret, another puzzle was hiding in plain sight within the Queen's chamber. This room, despite its name, was likely never meant for a queen. It holds its own enigma, two narrow shafts, each no wider than a dinner plate, that rise from the northern and southern walls. For over a century, Egyptologists believed these were simple ventilation shafts, perhaps left unfinished. But that assumption was shattered in 2002. An engineering team sent a small robotic crawler named Pyramid Rover up the southern shaft. The journey was a tight, claustrophobic crawl through ancient limestone. The robot reached what seemed to be the end, a solid block of stone sealing the passage. With a small drill, the rover bored a tiny hole through this barrier, just wide enough for a camera lens to peek through. What it saw sent a wave of excitement through the archaeological world. It was not a solid wall of rock on the other side. Instead, it was another carefully crafted door, this one fitted with ornate copper handles. The discovery was both thrilling and deeply puzzling. Why would a tiny, inaccessible shaft deep inside the pyramid's core be sealed with a door that had handles? Handles suggest something was meant to be opened, or perhaps symbolically sealed shut. One theory proposes the shafts were spiritual conduits, designed for the king's soul to travel to the stars, with the door representing a final barrier. Another, more practical idea suggests they might shield something fragile or sacred within a smaller, hidden cavity. The copper handles gleamed in the camera's light, a silent, elegant lock on a secret that remains unopened to this day. What purpose could such a meticulously sealed portal possibly serve? That sealed door with its copper handles was not the final word. In 2023, a new chapter in this story of hidden spaces was written, not deep within the pyramid's heart, but astonishingly close to its main entrance. Scientists announced the confirmed discovery of a hidden corridor, a 9-meter-long passage tucked just behind the polished limestone blocks that form the pyramid's iconic northern face. This was the North Face corridor. To find it, researchers again turned to the power of seeing without breaking. They used a combination of non-invasive scans, including infrared thermography, which measures heat patterns, and muography, the same cosmic ray technology that revealed the Big Void. These methods allowed them to essentially peer through the stone, mapping the empty space without drilling a single hole. The corridor's shape is particularly telling. It is not a straight shot, but an L-shaped structure bending sharply after its initial length. This design is a strong clue to its purpose. Many experts believe it was a crucial piece of ancient engineering, built to redirect and redistribute the immense gravitational pressures away from the pyramid's main entrance, which sits just 7 meters below it. Think of it as a cunningly placed architectural shock absorber, safeguarding the primary doorway for millennia. Yet, the mystery does not end with mere structural support. Why create such a carefully formed, hidden passageway? Another compelling theory suggests it might have served a spiritual function. Perhaps this corridor was a symbolic pathway, an unseen entrance designed for the pharaoh's soul to ascend to the afterlife, separate from the physical entrance used by the living. It is a space that perfectly blends the practical and the profound, a hidden arm of the pyramid that served both the earthbound needs of engineering and the celestial ambitions of a king's eternal journey. Its recent discovery proves that even the most visible parts of these ancient wonders can conceal secrets waiting just out of sight. This architectural sleight of hand was not unique to the Great Pyramid. At the older bent Pyramid of Dosha, builders crafted a secret of their own, one hidden high above the king's final resting place. Here, accessed only by a narrow, vertical shaft leading up from the upper burial chamber, lies a small, completely isolated room. To reach it, one would have to climb straight up from the sarcophagus, a journey for which no staircase or ladder was ever provided. The chamber itself is a stark and empty space, its rough, unfinished walls a sharp contrast to the polished perfection of the rooms below. Its very emptiness is a puzzle. Why construct such an inaccessible, secret chamber and leave it utterly bare? One compelling theory suggests this was a serdab, a special chamber designed to house a statue of the king's Ka, his spiritual double or life force. In ancient Egyptian belief, the Ka needed a physical anchor, a statue, to receive offerings and sustain itself in the afterlife. By sealing a statue in this unreachable room, the king's spirit would be protected for eternity, safe from tomb robbers and the passage of time, yet still connected to the world of the sacred rituals performed below. Another, more cosmic interpretation paints an even grander picture. This hidden, empty space may have been a symbolic representation of the Benben, the primordial mound of creation. In Egyptian mythology, this was the first patch of land to emerge from the endless waters of chaos at the dawn of time. The pyramid itself was a massive representation of this mound, a ramp for the pharaoh's soul to ascend to the stars. This secret chamber, then, could be the pyramid's ultimate hidden heart, the innermost sanctum representing the very moment of creation, a void holding the potential for all life. It is a space that challenges our understanding of emptiness, forcing us to ask whether a room is truly empty, if it was built to contain a king's immortal spirit or the seed of the entire universe. Far from the crowds at Giza, the Red Pyramid at Dosha holds a secret of its own. While visitors often focus on the main burial chamber deep within, a second, equally fascinating chamber lies just before it, a space frequently overlooked. This room is a masterpiece of ancient engineering, crowned by a breathtaking corbelled vault ceiling. Imagine massive stone blocks, each one jutting out slightly over the one below, rising in steps until they meet at a peak high above. This technique created a ceiling that was not only stunningly beautiful but incredibly strong, capable of supporting the millions of tons of stone piled above it for millennia. The precision of its construction is matched by its celestial alignment. The chamber is oriented with near-perfect accuracy to the cardinal directions, a feat that connected this enclosed space to the eternal cycles of the sun and stars. But the most tantalizing clues are not in the grand architecture, but in the small details. On the walls of this chamber, archaeologists have identified faint residues and minute markings, traces that are invisible to the casual observer. These are not the grand hieroglyphs of a king's glory, but something potentially more personal. Scientists are now conducting painstaking analyses of these microscopic deposits. Could they be the remnants of soot from ritual torches, or perhaps traces of organic material left from offerings made over 4,000 years ago? Some researchers even speculate that the markings could relate to the pyramid's original lost appearance. The Red Pyramid was once encased in smooth, gleaming white Chora limestone, making it shine like a brilliant beacon in the desert sun. The precise angles and alignment of this second chamber might have served as critical internal guides for the builders as they fitted that perfect outer shell into place. This room, therefore, is more than just an antechamber. It is a frozen moment in time, holding whispers of sacred ceremonies and the brilliant minds who calculated how to turn a mountain of stone into a perfect, shining monument. Beneath the towering precision of Khufu's pyramid lies a mystery that challenges our very idea of what a pyramid is. This is the second largest of the Giza pyramids, famous for the cap of original casing stones at its peak. Yet its deepest secret may not be built from stone blocks but carved by nature itself. Recent surveys using ground-penetrating radar have detected something startling deep below the foundation. The data reveals a significant anomaly, a large area with a different density than the surrounding bedrock. This is not the clean, geometric signature of a man-made chamber. Instead, it suggests the presence of a subterranean cavity, a possible natural grotto that existed long before the first stone was ever set in place. Why would the pyramid's architects choose to build their monumental tomb directly over such a feature? The answer may lie in the sacred geography of the Giza Plateau. To the ancient Egyptians, the world was born from a primordial mound rising out of a watery chaos. A natural cave or grotto, especially one that might have held water, would have been a powerful symbol of this nun, the chaotic waters from which all life emerged. By anchoring their pyramid to this pre-existing sacred space, the builders could have been physically and spiritually connecting the pharaoh's tomb to the very moment of creation. The pyramid becomes more than a tomb. It becomes a recreation of the cosmos itself, with the king's chamber positioned between the earthly grotto below and the celestial stars above. This theory transforms the pyramid from a simple structure into a profound cosmic engine. Was Khufu's pyramid deliberately constructed to harness the spiritual power of an ancient natural landmark? The evidence whispers yes, suggesting that the greatest architects of the ancient world were not just building with stone, but weaving the very landscape into their divine blueprint for eternity. High above the hidden grotto, another pyramid tells a story of a plan interrupted. The Pyramid of Menkaure, the smallest of the three great pyramids at Giza, holds a stark contrast within its core. Deep beneath its polished burial chamber lies a second room, a space left in a state of shocking incompletion. Its walls are jagged and rough-hewn, a chaotic mess of chisel marks and protruding bedrock that looks nothing like the smooth, precise architecture found elsewhere. This is not a chamber as we imagine it, but a snapshot of a construction site suddenly frozen in time. Why was this room abandoned in such a crude state? The sudden death of the pharaoh Menkaure is the most straightforward explanation. If the king died before the pyramid was finished, workers may have rushed to complete only the essential upper burial chamber, sealing his body inside and leaving the lower levels raw and forgotten. Yet another theory suggests a dramatic shift in religious belief. Perhaps the complex funerary rituals that required multiple chambers were simplified, making this lower room obsolete before it could be finished. A third, more practical possibility points to a structural flaw. The builders may have encountered a fissure in the bedrock or realized the weight distribution was unstable, forcing them to halt work and redesign the pyramid's interior, focusing all their efforts on the higher, safer chamber. The unfinished chamber's very roughness is a treasure trove for understanding how these monuments were built. It shows us the initial, brutal phase of excavation, where workers carved directly into the living rock with copper chisels and stone hammers. We can see the precise tool marks, the steps they took to hollow out the space before the skilled artisans would have arrived to smooth and perfect it. This room is a blueprint in 3 dimensions, revealing that pyramid construction was a messy, multi-stage process, far from the seamless operation we often envision. It stands as a silent witness to a deadline that could not be met, a king's eternity compromised by the unforgiving limits of time, faith, or the very earth itself. Years before the world saw the copper handles, a different robot was making its own historic ascent. In 1993, a small, pioneering machine named Upuaut-2 crawled into the same narrow southern shaft of the Queen's Chamber. Its journey was painstaking, a slow climb up the steep, polished limestone incline. After a journey of over 200 feet, its camera finally revealed the obstacle that had blocked the path for thousands of years. It was not a rough collapse of stone, but a meticulously crafted door. This was a beautiful, pristine slab of fine Tura limestone fitted perfectly into the shaft. And set into its surface were 2 distinctive, enigmatic copper pins. The discovery, led by engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink, sent a shockwave through Egyptology. The world quickly dubbed this barrier Gantenbrink's door. The immediate and obvious question was, what were these pins for? They were not crude lumps of metal, but carefully manufactured components. One compelling theory is that they were simple structural reinforcements, tying the limestone slab to a larger block behind it to prevent it from sliding down the steep shaft. Yet their polished, finished appearance suggests a purpose beyond mere utility. This leads to a more symbolic interpretation. In ancient Egyptian religion, doors were not just physical barriers. They were potent thresholds between worlds, between the realm of the living and the realm of the gods. The copper pins could have been seen as symbolic handles, not for any human hand to turn, but for a divine entity. They might have been crafted for a god to grasp, to open this celestial pathway for the soul of the king to ascend to the stars. The door itself, then, becomes a kind of spiritual airlock, a final checkpoint on a journey to the afterlife. But the most tantalizing question of all remains unanswered. What lies on the other side of that elegant slab? Is it simply a short, blocked-off section of the shaft, its construction purpose complete, or does it guard another, smaller cavity, perhaps one containing a sacred ritual object, a statue, or an offering meant for eternity? The later discovery of a second, similar door with copper handles beyond it only deepens the puzzle. Gantenbrink's door stands as the original sentinel, a perfectly cut piece of stone that has kept its secret intact, challenging us to wonder if some chambers were meant to be found, while others were designed to remain forever beyond our reach. The grandeur of the main pyramids often overshadows the smaller, equally mysterious structures that dot the Giza Plateau. Just to the south of Menkaura's pyramid stands one of these satellite pyramids, a modest structure that guards a secret of its own. Within its compact core, excavators uncovered a hidden, undecorated crypt. The room was stark, its rough walls devoid of the hieroglyphs and art that adorned the tombs of pharaohs. This simplicity speaks volumes. It suggests this chamber was not built for a king, but likely for a royal consort, a queen or a lesser wife whose burial was intended to accompany the pharaoh into the afterlife. The arrangement was a powerful symbol of the royal household's continuity beyond death. Another compelling theory posits the crypt was not for a person at all, but for a sacred object. It could have been a serdab designed to house a statue of the king's Ka, his spiritual double. Sealing this statue in a separate pyramid would have provided an eternal, protected anchor for his life force, independent of his physical mummy in the main tomb. The evidence within the crypt was fragmentary but telling. Scattered across the floor were the fragile remains of a human skeleton, too damaged by time and looters to identify with certainty. Alongside these bones lay broken pieces of pottery, simple shards of what were once elegant vessels. These were canopic jars used to hold the preserved organs of the deceased, and offering plates that once bore food and drink for the soul's journey. These humble fragments offer a poignant glimpse into the burial customs of the lesser royalty. Their rituals mirrored those of the pharaohs, yet were conducted on a quieter, more intimate scale. This small crypt, with its anonymous occupant and broken pottery, tells a story not of cosmic power, but of personal devotion and the quiet hope for eternity that extended to every corner of the royal family. The pyramids were not solitary islands of stone, but the vibrant hearts of entire religious complexes. Just beyond the Great Pyramid's causeway stood a temple dedicated to the sun god Ra, a place of daily ceremony and chanting priests. And within that temple, archaeologists uncovered a secret of its own, a small, windowless room hidden behind a false wall. This was the temple's inner sanctum, an altar room so sacred that only the high priest was permitted to enter. Imagine a space utterly devoid of light, where the air was thick with the smell of incense and burning oil. Here, in this intense privacy, the high priest would perform the essential rituals to nourish the sun god. He would make offerings of food, pour libations of water and wine, and recite powerful spells to ensure Ra's successful rebirth each dawn. This was not just an act of cosmic maintenance, it was a direct lifeline to the pharaoh entombed in his nearby pyramid. The ancient Egyptians believed their king was the son of Ra, a divine being whose afterlife was intrinsically linked to the sun god's eternal cycle. By sustaining Ra, the priest was simultaneously sustaining the pharaoh's soul, feeding his divine power and ensuring his successful journey alongside the solar bark across the sky. This hidden altar room was the spiritual engine of the entire complex. Its sealed, secret nature was crucial, for it protected the most potent magic from any impure sight or sound. The rituals performed in that darkness were the invisible threads connecting the earthly temple to the celestial pyramid, binding the fate of a god to the eternity of a king. But the secrets of the pyramids were not confined to the tombs of kings or the temples of gods. A short distance from the great monuments, within the humble ruins of the workers' village at Giza, archaeologists uncovered a different kind of hidden chamber. Beneath the compacted earth floor of a simple mud-brick home, they found a concealed storeroom, a secret space created by the very people who raised the stone giants. This was not a chamber for eternity, but for survival and solidarity. Its contents were a stunning time capsule of daily life. Inside were the practical tools of their trade, copper chisels worn down from years of cutting stone and robust stone hammers that had pounded blocks into place. But alongside these tools were more fragile, telling treasures. Scraps of papyrus, fragments of work logs, detailed the movement of stones and the organization of labor crews. These were not the grand pronouncements of a pharaoh, but the mundane paperwork of a massive, state-run project. Even more poignant were the remains of food, fish bones and grain carefully stored away. Why would ordinary workers feel the need to hide such everyday items? The answer reveals a society far more complex than we once believed. This secret hoard suggests that these builders, while likely well provisioned by the state, may have been saving extra supplies for lean times, or perhaps trading goods amongst themselves outside the official system. The hidden storeroom speaks of a community with its own private economy and its own fears, a group of people who, despite their incredible collective achievement, still took measures to secure a small piece of their own world, hidden just beneath their feet. This chamber does not hold the spirit of a king, but the quiet, resilient heartbeat of the thousands who made the impossible a reality. The workers' hidden storeroom reveals a world of practical concerns, but the true scale of the pyramid's logistical heart lay buried in stone. Beneath the polished floors of Khufu's Valley Temple, recent seismic and radar surveys have exposed a sprawling sub-basement, a hidden network of chambers and magazines that functioned as the ultimate backstage for the king's final journey. This was not a space for the living or the dead, but for the sacred machinery of the burial rite itself. Imagine the quiet, purposeful activity in these sunless rooms. Priests would have moved silently through narrow corridors, storing the ritual objects essential for the opening of the mouth ceremony, the vital magic that would reanimate the pharaoh's mummy for the afterlife. There would be ceremonial vessels, sacred oils, and precious incense, but beyond the spiritual items, these magazines served a brutally practical purpose. This is where the king's funerary equipment, his sarcophagus, his canopic chest, and the mountains of provisions for his eternal sustenance were all staged and secured before their final, solemn procession up the causeway to the pyramid. This hidden complex was the crucial logistical hub, a divine warehouse where every item was checked, consecrated, and prepared. Its very design speaks of an immense and organized operation. Why keep this entire network concealed beneath the temple floor? Secrecy was a form of security and sanctity. By burying these preparations, the priests protected the most powerful and vulnerable moment of the royal transition from any impure gaze. The treasures and the rituals were shielded until the very instant they were needed, ensuring that the king's passage from this world to the next was flawless, uninterrupted, and utterly secret. This sub-basement was the silent, beating heart of the funeral, a place where the immense physical effort of building a pyramid met the profound spiritual duty of launching a god into eternity. The Sphinx, that colossal guardian of the Giza Plateau, may be hiding secrets as vast as its own weathered body. For centuries, rumors have swirled about a lost world concealed within its limestone core. Ground-penetrating radar and other seismic surveys have only deepened the intrigue, revealing a series of tantalizing anomalies beneath the statue's paws and along its flanks. These surveys show pockets and passages that do not match the solid geology around them, yet the data is frustratingly conflicted, with one team's clear cavity appearing as a faint blur in another's readings. This scientific disagreement fuels the most persistent legend of all, the story of a hall of records. According to this theory, a secret archive built by a lost civilization lies buried deep below the Sphinx, containing the wisdom of Atlantis or the true history of humanity. While mainstream archaeology dismisses this as pure fantasy, the unresolved geophysical data leaves a door open to wonder. The greatest challenge is not belief but preservation. How do you explore these potential chambers without risking the collapse of the most recognizable statue on Earth? Any attempt to drill or excavate could cause irreparable damage to the fragile, water-eroded stone. The Sphinx holds its possible voids in a perfect, silent stalemate, a mystery protected as much by our own caution as by the ancient builder's design. Long before the smooth slopes of Giza, a different kind of wonder rose from the sands of Saqqara. The step pyramid of Pharaoh Djoser is not just the world's first major stone building, it is a maze of secrets buried deep beneath its iconic tiers. While later pyramids perfected the art of concealing a few chambers, Djoser's complex is a subterranean universe, a labyrinth of tunnels, galleries, and storerooms that sprawls for nearly 4 miles. This was the grand prototype, the first ambitious attempt to build an eternal palace for a king, both above and below the earth. The scale of this underground world is almost unimaginable. At its heart lies the central burial vault, a massive granite chamber where Djoser was laid to rest. But branching out from this core is a bewildering network of passages. Some lead to real galleries, while others are dummy corridors that end abruptly in solid rock. Why would the brilliant architect Imhotep design such an elaborate system of dead ends? This was the ancient world's first sophisticated security system, a clever puzzle box designed to confuse and deter tomb robbers. The sheer number of real storerooms is another marvel. Archaeologists have uncovered over 40,000 stone vessels in these underground magazines, beautifully carved from materials like alabaster and schist. They held provisions for the king's afterlife, but their quantity is staggering. It suggests that Djoser was not just stocking a tomb, he was provisioning a divine kingdom, ensuring his spirit would want for nothing for all eternity. This vast, hidden infrastructure established the blueprint for everything that would follow. The later true pyramids at Giza streamlined this concept, condensing the sprawling labyrinth into a more compact, vertically stacked series of sealed chambers and relieving voids. Yet the core idea remained the same: to create a hidden, protected, and self-sufficient world within the stone, a secret dimension built solely for a king's journey beyond death. Djoser's labyrinth was the original vision, a breathtaking declaration that a pharaoh's power would extend into the afterlife, guarded by an entire city of stone hidden silently beneath the earth. One of the most intimate secrets of Djoser's labyrinth lies in a small, sealed chamber known as the Serdab. Tucked away within the pyramid's base, this was a hidden room with a single, profound purpose. Inside, seated for eternity, was a magnificent life-sized statue of Pharaoh Djoser himself, carved from painted limestone. His shell-shaped ears listen for whispers of prayers uttered thousands of years ago, and his inlaid eyes, once made of brilliant rock crystal, stare out from the darkness. But the statue was not meant to be seen by the living. Instead, it was designed to observe. The architects built the Serdab with two small, precise holes drilled through the wall at the statue's eye level. These tiny apertures created a one-way window from the statue's dark prison to the world outside. Through them, the king's cast statue could watch the priests performing the essential daily rituals in the adjacent courtyard. It could see the offerings of bread and beer, witness the chanting, and observe the sacred dances. More than that, the holes allowed the statue to breathe. The fragrant smoke from burning incense and the scent of roasting meat would waft through these openings, nourishing the king's spiritual double with the very essence of the offerings. This was the ancient Egyptian concept of eternity in action, a perfect, perpetual cycle of ritual and sustenance. The statue was not just a representation of the king, it was a living vessel for his soul, and this hidden chamber was its eternal home. The Serdab's perfect, sealed design ensured that while the king's physical body rested in the granite vault deep below, his active, watching spirit remained connected to the world of the living, forever partaking in the ceremonies that guaranteed his divine existence. It is a breathtakingly personal solution to the problem of immortality, a hidden chamber built not for treasure but for a soul. Those narrow channels in the Great Pyramid's king's chamber have long been labeled as simple air shafts. This explanation feels almost too practical for a monument dedicated to the divine. The idea that ancient engineers went to such extreme lengths, carving perfect, narrow tunnels through millions of tons of stone, just to circulate a little air, simply does not hold up to the grandeur of their ambition. A far more compelling theory has taken root, one that connects the pharaoh's tomb directly to the heavens. These were not air shafts but star shafts. Researchers studying the precise angles of these narrow passages made a breathtaking discovery. The southern shaft from the king's chamber points directly toward the constellation of Orion, which the Egyptians associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife and rebirth. The northern shaft targets the circumpolar stars, specifically Alpha Draconis at the time of construction, stars that the ancients called the imperishable ones because they never set below the horizon. This was not a random alignment, it was a deliberate celestial map built in stone. Imagine the moment of the king's burial. After the priests sealed the chamber and withdrew, these shafts were the only physical connections to the world above. The ancient Egyptians believed the deceased pharaoh's soul, his Ba, would need to embark on a cosmic journey to join the gods. These shafts provided the literal pathway. The soul would travel up through the dark, confined tunnel, emerging from the pyramid's side to fly straight into the heart of the starry sky, to merge with Osiris and achieve eternal life among the undying stars. This transforms our understanding of the pyramid's interior from a sealed tomb into a launch complex for a spiritual voyage. The precision required to hit a specific star after tunneling through hundreds of feet of solid stone is an engineering marvel that still defies belief. Why would they go to such impossible lengths? Because for them, it was not about moving air. It was about building a bridge for a soul to walk from death into divinity. A permanent, unshakable connection between a king's silent chamber and the turning wheel of the cosmos above. The star shafts of the king's chamber point to the cosmos, but another secret lies hidden among the humble dead. In the sprawling western cemetery, a field of flat, rectangular tombs known as mastabas, archaeologists uncovered a chamber that defied all expectations. It was an unmarked tomb, a simple, single room tucked anonymously beneath the sand, and it had miraculously escaped the notice of looters for over 4,000 years. Its very plainness was its greatest protection. Inside, the air was still and ancient, holding a scene frozen in time. On a low stone slab lay a single, complete skeleton, resting in peaceful repose. There were no golden masks, no jeweled chests, no inscriptions boasting of titles or triumphs. The grave goods were sparse and telling, a few simple pottery vessels that once held food and water, a set of worn copper tools, and a single string of faded faience beads. This was not the burial of a pharaoh or a prince. The analysis of the skeletal remains revealed a person of middle years, someone who had lived a life of physical labor, yet showed no signs of the extreme malnutrition or injury common among the lowest classes. So who was this anonymous individual, and why were they granted the incredible honor of a secret, undisturbed burial in the shadow of the Great Pyramid, one of the most prestigious addresses in the ancient world? One compelling theory suggests this was a master craftsman, perhaps the lead architect or a senior priest who oversaw a critical phase of the pyramid's construction. His knowledge may have been so valuable, or his connection to the king's divine project so sacred, that he was rewarded with this hidden eternity among the nobility. Another, more poignant idea is that this person performed a single, extraordinary act of loyalty or bravery, a deed so significant that the king himself ordered this discreet but eternal recognition. The simple beads and tools were not signs of poverty, but perhaps the personal possessions he valued most, items that defined his identity and his skill. His unmarked chamber is a quiet testament to a different kind of immortality, one based not on royal blood, but on quiet merit and secret honor, a mystery individual who earned his place in the sacred ground through a story we may never fully know. High above the king's silent sarcophagus, the pyramid's architects engineered a secret ceiling of their own. These are the 5 relieving chambers, a stack of hidden spaces perched directly above the king's chamber. For centuries, their existence was completely unknown, concealed behind the massive granite ceiling blocks. They were not discovered until the early 19th century, and their name can be a little misleading. They were not built to relieve the king of his burdens, but to relieve the chamber below of an unimaginable weight. The sheer mass of stone built above the king's chamber is almost beyond comprehension. Without intervention, the flat granite ceiling would have surely fractured, collapsing inward under the pressure. The solution was as brilliant as it was simple. The builders constructed these 5 narrow compartments, one on top of the other, with massive, sloping limestone slabs forming the roof of each one. This ingenious design transformed a single, unbearable point of pressure into a series of redistributed loads. Instead of the full weight pushing down on one flat ceiling, the force was channeled upwards and outwards, dissipated through the angled roofs of each successive chamber until it was safely spread across the pyramid's core. This was ancient engineering at its most sophisticated, a hidden safety system working silently in the dark. But these chambers hold more than just structural genius. When the explorer Howard Vyse first breached these spaces in 1837, he found the air thick with the dust of millennia and the walls covered in something utterly unexpected, vibrant red graffiti. These were not the formal hieroglyphs of a pharaoh, but the casual marks of the work crews themselves. The most famous inscription simply reads, "The Friends of Khufu." This is the only contemporary written evidence found inside the Great Pyramid, a direct message from the very men who built it. These graffiti are not boasts of engineering prowess, but seemingly mundane notations, likely indicating the names of the work gangs responsible for hauling the specific blocks. Yet their presence is profoundly significant. They confirm that this was the Pyramid of Khufu, settling a long-standing debate. More importantly, they humanize this colossal project. In this sterile, functional space never meant to be seen again, a worker left his crew's name, a small act of identity that has endured for 4,500 years. The relieving chambers are a perfect duality, a place where the cold, precise physics of weight distribution coexists with the warm, indelible mark of human hands. Deep within the Queen's chamber, an alcove cut into the eastern wall holds a mystery as profound as the room itself. This is the chamber's deep niche, a tall, narrow recess that seems to lead nowhere, its purpose erased by time. Unlike the smooth, finished walls around it, the niche is rough and unadorned, a stark architectural question mark carved directly into the pyramid's core. Why would the builders create such a prominent feature only to leave it in such a raw state? One of the most compelling theories suggests this was intended as a serdab, a hidden chamber for a statue of the king's Ka. If a statue of Khufu had once stood here, it would have been a powerful spiritual anchor, a place for his life force to reside, connected to the rituals performed within the chamber. Yet no pedestal or base was ever found, and the niche's depth seems excessive for a single statue. This leads to another fascinating idea, that the niche was a symbolic false door. In later Egyptian tombs, false doors were carved on the western wall, acting as magical portals for the deceased spirit to pass through and receive offerings. The Queen's chamber niche is on the eastern wall, facing the rising sun, which could signify a different kind of passage, perhaps for the king's soul to ascend with the sun god Ra. But why was it left unfinished? The most likely explanation points to a sudden change in design. The pyramid's architects may have initially planned an entire suite of rituals for this chamber, with the niche as its focal point, only to abandon the concept partway through. Perhaps the theological focus shifted entirely to the king's chamber above, rendering this earlier design obsolete. The rough, unpolished stone of the niche is a frozen moment of that decision, a plan interrupted and sealed away for millennia. It stands as a permanent reminder that the pyramid we see today is a final product, the result of countless revisions and adaptations made by ancient minds solving problems in real time, leaving behind silent clues to a blueprint we can only partially decipher. Far beneath the polished passages and grand galleries, a different world awaits. To reach the subterranean chamber, you must descend a long, steep ramp deep into the bedrock, leaving the pyramid's precise masonry behind for raw, unfinished stone. This rough-hewn cavern feels utterly alien compared to the grandeur above. Its floor is uneven, its walls jagged, and in one corner, a deep, square pit is cut directly into the rock. But the chamber's greatest mystery is a narrow, low tunnel that burrows straight south from this pit, a passage that leads nowhere, ending abruptly in a solid wall after just a few dozen feet. Why would the pyramid's builders dig so deep, only to create a tunnel that goes absolutely nowhere? One compelling theory posits that this was Khufu's original burial chamber, the first plan in a design that changed dramatically. Perhaps early in the construction, the pharaoh was meant to be interred within the earth itself, in this deep, grotto-like space. But then, the architects had a revolutionary idea, deciding to build his tomb upwards within the heart of the rising stone mountain, abandoning this lower chamber to the darkness. This would explain the tunnel's crude, purposeless nature, a project simply left unfinished when the focus shifted. Another interpretation is purely symbolic. This deep, dark pit with its dead-end passage could be a powerful representation of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. The soul's journey to the afterlife was fraught with peril, a passage through a labyrinthine realm before emerging, reborn with the sun. This tunnel, leading to a literal dead end, might have been a ritual space, a physical manifestation of that dangerous path the king's spirit had to overcome. The most profound theory, however, connects this chamber to the very beginning of time. In Egyptian creation myths, the world emerged from none, the primordial waters of chaos. This deep chamber, carved into the water-bearing limestone bedrock, might have been a hydrological feature, a symbolic well tapping into those chaotic waters. The dead-end tunnel could have been an attempt to channel this sacred essence, or simply to mark the presence of the abyss below. By building his pyramid directly over this point, Khufu was not just building a tomb, he was anchoring his resurrection to the source of all creation, his eternal palace rising from the same dark waters that spawned the universe itself. That same robotic exploration that revealed the southern door soon turned its cameras northward, uncovering a near-identical mystery. Crawling up the northern shaft of the Queen's chamber, the robot encountered another perfectly fitted limestone slab, another sealed barrier blocking the path. This was the northern door, a discovery that mirrored the southern one in almost every way. It too was made of the same fine Tura limestone, and it too was equipped with two mysterious metal pins or fittings. The symmetry was striking, two identical sentinels guarding the ends of these narrow, upward slanting tunnels. This mirror image design is a powerful clue. It strongly suggests the two doors were part of a single, unified ritual plan, a balanced architectural feature meant to serve a symmetrical spiritual purpose. In ancient Egyptian thought, balance and duality were fundamental to the cosmos, the idea of Mot. The north and south, the imperishable stars and the constellation of Osiris, were two halves of a complete celestial system. These two doors could have been the physical endpoints of this system, the final, sealed gateways for the king's soul to pass through on its journey to the stars. Yet, for all their similarities, a crucial difference emerged. When scientists used more advanced technology to peer through the northern slab, they found the space beyond was not identical. While the southern door had a small cavity behind it with a second, inner door, the space beyond the northern door appeared different. The configuration of the chamber behind it seemed distinct. This subtle variation raises a tantalizing possibility. What if the symmetry was not perfect? What if these two identical doors, instead of leading to the same kind of space, actually guarded different types of chambers or held different symbolic meanings? Perhaps the southern door, aligned with Osiris, led to a space representing the underworld and rebirth, while the northern door, aimed at the undying stars, led to a chamber symbolizing eternal, unchanging divinity. The two identical barriers, then, might be the starting point for two different, equally important journeys for the king's spirit. The presence of the metal pins on both doors deepens the ritual interpretation. They were not functional handles for human hands, but perhaps symbolic anchors for divine energy or sacred locks meant to be opened only by the gods. These two small, sealed portals present us with a choice. Was the pyramid's design one of perfect, mirrored ritual, or did its builders encode a more complex duality within its heart, a secret of two paths leading from a single, silent chamber? The very ground around the pyramids was engineered for a celestial voyage. While the grand solar bark discovered near the Great Pyramid is famous for its immense size, the smaller, secondary boat pits tell an even richer story of the pharaoh's journey into eternity. Tucked away near the main pits, these secret caches held not complete ships, but dismantled vessels or intricate ritual models, carefully bundled and sealed in their own hidden chambers. Why would a king need more than one boat? The ancient Egyptians envisioned the afterlife as a complex journey across multiple realms. The pharaoh needed to travel with the sun god Ra across the sky by day, but he also had to navigate the treacherous, star-lit waterways of the underworld by night. Each leg of this eternal voyage required a different kind of vessel. The great cedar bark was his solar yacht for daytime travel, a majestic craft for a god. But the dismantled boats, ready to be magically reassembled by the king's spirit, were his practical fleet for the unknown challenges of the Duat, the underworld. The smaller model boats, exquisitely carved from precious woods, were perhaps symbolic offerings or magical substitutes, ensuring that even if one vessel failed, the king's journey would continue uninterrupted. These secondary pits were the ultimate insurance policy for immortality. By hiding these spare boats and ritual models in separate, often unmarked caches, the priests safeguarded the king's entire cosmic itinerary. If robbers ever found and desecrated the primary solar bark, these hidden reserves would still be there, waiting in the dark, ready to launch the pharaoh's soul on its endless, necessary journey. This was not an excess of treasure, but a profound understanding of the perils of the afterlife, a secret naval fleet buried in the sand to serve a king navigating the cosmos itself. A major breach in the pyramid's defenses occurred long ago, not through some forgotten shaft, but through a crude, forceful tunnel carved by determined looters. This passage, known as the Looter's Tunnel, is a brutal scar on the monument's precision, a testament to a desperate race for treasure that began almost as soon as the king was sealed inside. It represents the greatest fear of the pyramid's architects, the violation they designed every hidden chamber and dead-end corridor to prevent. Yet the story does not end with the thieves' success. Centuries later, but still in deep antiquity, the Egyptian state itself rediscovered this violation and took decisive action. A team of restorers working under the authority of a pharaoh who saw himself as a guardian of the past carefully and expertly sealed the tunnel once more. They did not simply fill it with rubble. They used the same methods as the original builders, crafting a permanent stone and mortar plug that mirrored the pyramid's own construction. This was not a hasty patch job, but a deliberate act of restoration, an attempt to re-sanctify the desecrated tomb. The evidence left in the tunnel is a layered puzzle. Scratches from metal tools mark the looters' progress, and fragments of broken pottery, perhaps from their water skins, litter the floor. But atop this evidence of the crime lies the restorers' neat masonry, a silent declaration that the battle to protect these spaces was a continuous, ancient struggle. This blocked tunnel tells a profound story of two different kinds of determination: the greed that sought to plunder a king's eternity, and the reverence that fought, even millennia ago, to put the sacred world back together. This shift in time brings us to the Pyramid of Unas at Saqqara, the final resting place of a pharaoh whose inner walls broke a profound silence. They were the first to be carved with the pyramid texts, the sacred spells to guide a king's soul. But now, modern scans have revealed a secret the texts do not mention. A distinct anomaly, a pocket of unexpected emptiness, has been detected just beneath the sand and stone near the pyramid's entrance. This hidden void is not part of the known substructure, raising an immediate and fascinating question. What purpose did this small, concealed space serve? One compelling possibility is that it was a serdab, a hidden chamber for a statue of the king's Ka. This would be a powerful, private anchor for his spirit, separate from the royal mummy deep within, forever connected to the rituals performed at the entrance. Another theory points to a more practical, yet equally sacred function. It could be a foundation deposit cache. When constructing a monument of this importance, the ancient builders often sealed small, ritual items at key points like the corners or entrances. These offerings, which could include model tools, pottery, or plaques inscribed with the king's name, were a gift to the gods, a plea for stability and divine blessing for the entire structure. Finding such a cache here would be like uncovering the pyramid's own cornerstone ceremony, a time capsule from the moment of its creation. Yet the most tantalizing idea connects this anomaly to the very evolution of the pyramid itself. The burial chamber of Unas is deep underground, accessed by a long descending passage. Could this newly found void represent an earlier, abandoned plan? Perhaps the architects first intended to build the king's tomb higher up, closer to the surface, in a design echoing the older step pyramids, only to change their minds and dig deeper, leaving this initial chamber as a forgotten prototype, sealed and hidden as the final design took shape. The silence of this anomaly is profound. It holds the potential to be a spiritual anchor, a builder's offering, or a discarded blueprint, a single hidden chamber that speaks volumes about the sacred engineering of a king's ascent. The Maidam Pyramid holds a mystery heard but never seen. Early explorers, tapping on its weathered core stones, reported a deep, resonant echo emanating from within the massive structure. This was not the dull thud of solid masonry, but a hollow, reverberating sound that suggested a vast, empty space hidden behind the outer layers. They called this unseen feature the echoing chamber, a room detected solely by the vibrations it returned to a listening ear. The geological reality of the Maidam Pyramid provides a compelling explanation. The structure suffered a catastrophic partial collapse in antiquity, likely due to a fundamental engineering flaw in its angles or foundation. This collapse created immense internal stresses, fracturing the stone blocks and shifting the pyramid's core. These shifts could have opened narrow fissures and gaps between the massive limestone blocks, forming a complex network of interconnected voids. When sound waves from a tap or shout travel through the stone, they can bounce and resonate within these cavities, amplifying into the deep echo that so startled the early adventurers. It is an architectural echo chamber created by structural failure. But does this phenomenon point to a single grand chamber, or is it merely the product of these scattered fractures? The unique step design of Maidam, an evolutionary bridge between the step pyramids and the true smooth-sided ones, makes it a prime candidate for hidden construction errors. The builders might have left an internal gap or a small, sealed relieving chamber that was never documented, a space that was then dramatically altered by the pyramid's own collapse. The echoing sound could be the ghost of that original design, a hidden room now accessible only to vibrations and sound waves. Was the echoing chamber a real, purpose-built room now sealed by rubble, or is it simply the haunting voice of the pyramid's own architectural demise, a permanent whisper of a grand ambition that literally fell short? A high priest's hidden chamber reveals a different path to eternity. Just beyond the shadow of the Sphinx, attached to an unassuming mastaba tomb, archaeologists uncovered a secret crypt built for one of Egypt's most powerful religious figures. While the pharaohs aimed for the stars with their monumental pyramids, this chamber was designed for a more intimate yet equally perilous journey through the underworld. The walls of this small, sealed room were not bare. They were covered from floor to ceiling in columns of intricate hieroglyphs, a dense tapestry of spells and incantations known as the coffin texts. These were not the royal pyramid texts of the kings, but a more personalized magic, a detailed guidebook written specifically to help the high priest navigate the treacherous landscape of the afterlife. He would need to know the true names of the demons he might meet and the precise words to appease the fearsome gatekeepers guarding each portal, but the protection did not end with words. Scattered around a simple sarcophagus were arrays of powerful amulets, each one a piece of spiritual armor. A beautifully carved jed pillar amulet, symbolizing stability, was meant to ensure the priest's backbone would not fail him. A tayet or knot of Isis promised the protection of the goddess. Small, fearsome figurines of gods stood guard, their purpose to repel any malevolent force that might try to intercept the priest's soul. This hidden chamber was the private, essential counterpart to the grand royal complexes. The high priest did not need a pyramid to reach the gods. He needed the right knowledge and the correct magic, sealed away in a secret space that mirrored his vital, yet hidden, role in society. He was the man who performed the rituals that sustained the sun god and the pharaoh, and his own eternity depended on a perfectly prepared, utterly secret refuge, a hidden chamber of spells that was his personal key to immortality. These small foundation deposits were the pyramid's ritual anchors. Tucked away at the corners of the sacred complex, these sealed chambers were not built for humans or even for gods, but for the building itself. They were magical time capsules designed to consecrate the ground and ensure the structure's stability for all eternity. Imagine a ceremony at the very start of construction before a single major block was laid. Priests would carefully lower a collection of specific, symbolic objects into a small, stone-lined pit, sealing it forever beneath the desert floor. Inside, they placed perfect miniature versions of the tools that would build the pyramid, tiny copper chisels and stone pounders. These were not toys, but powerful symbols capturing the essence of the craft and infusing the monument with the skill of the builders from its very foundation. Alongside the tools were simple pottery vessels, some filled with grain, beer, or dried fish. These were sustenance offerings, but not for any living person. They were meant to nourish the invisible spirit of the pyramid, to magically provide for its eternal needs just as food provided for a human body. Sometimes they included alabaster model bricks or plaques inscribed with the king's name, physically tying his identity and his divine right to rule into the very earth he was building upon. Why go to such lengths for a few small, hidden holes in the ground? For the ancient Egyptians, a building was a living entity. It had a spirit, a life force that needed to be born correctly and maintained forever. By burying these deposits, the priests were performing a kind of spiritual foundation, creating a permanent, magical circuit that would power the pyramid's purpose long after the last worker had gone home. These chambers were the silent, sacred seeds from which the stone mountains grew, ensuring that the king's journey and the god's favor would remain as stable as the stones themselves. One pyramid's secret remains deliberately untouched. At the edge of the Giza Plateau, a modest satellite structure guards a passage seen only by radar. Ground-penetrating scans have mapped a clean, descending corridor that slopes down from the pyramid's core, leading to a single, unexcavated chamber. The signal is unmistakable, a void of perfect geometric shape that promises a space sealed since the day the pyramid was closed. This is the ultimate archaeological temptation, a room that has likely never felt the tread of a robber's foot, potentially holding artifacts exactly as the priests left them. The contents could be anything from the intact burial of a queen to a cache of ritual objects, or even papyrus scrolls detailing the pyramid's own construction. Yet the very act of reaching this chamber could destroy it. The satellite pyramid is far more fragile than its massive neighbors. Its masonry is less stable, and the weight of the sand and stone above the passage creates a delicate equilibrium. Any attempt to dig could trigger a collapse, burying the corridor and its terminal room forever under tons of rubble. The ethical dilemma is profound. Do we satisfy our thirst for knowledge by intervening, or do we honor the ancient builders' original intent by leaving their secret inviolate? Some argue that non-invasive technology will only improve, allowing future generations to peer inside with even greater clarity without ever breaking the seal. Others counter that the structure could collapse naturally at any time, and that we have a duty to rescue whatever knowledge lies within before it is lost to time. This silent, unseen chamber forces us to confront our role as stewards of the past, weighing the priceless value of a pristine discovery against the permanent cost of a single, irreversible mistake. Deep within the bent pyramid, a phantom room haunts the scientific data. multiple scans using both cosmic ray muons and ground-penetrating radar have all detected the same faint signature of a void. This ghost chamber is not part of the pyramid's known upper or lower sections, but appears to linger in the very transition zone where the building's angle dramatically shifts. Pinpointing its exact form is maddeningly difficult because the scan results are just at the edge of resolution. The data shows a consistent blur, a suggestion of emptiness that is too small or too shielded to be clearly mapped. It is like hearing a persistent whisper from behind a thick wall, a sound you cannot ignore but whose words you can never quite decipher. Why is this ghost so stubbornly elusive? The bent pyramid's unique construction is the primary culprit. Its lower portion rises at a steep 54-degree angle, while the upper section abruptly shifts to a much shallower 43 degrees. This radical change created immense internal stresses, fracturing the core masonry and creating a chaotic web of small cracks and fissures. These natural gaps can mimic the signal of a man-made chamber, making it nearly impossible to distinguish a built room from a collapse feature using remote sensing alone. Yet the consistency of the anomaly across different scanning technologies keeps the possibility alive. If this ghost is real, its implications are profound. Its location in the transition zone suggests it could be a relic of the original, steeper design, a chamber that was sealed and literally built around when the architects made the desperate decision to change the pyramid's angle to prevent its collapse. This small space could be a time capsule holding the blueprint for the initial, failed ambition of the pyramid. Or it might have served a crucial, temporary function during the chaotic rebuild, perhaps as a safe observation post for the chief architect to monitor the redistribution of weight as the new, gentler slope was constructed. This phantom room embodies the pyramid's own identity crisis, a hidden scar in the stone that represents the moment the builders had to abandon their perfect, steep vision and compromise with reality to save their king's eternal tomb from immediate ruin. The 30 chambers we have explored are merely the ones science has confirmed. For every one of these, there are dozens of other ghostly signatures flickering on radar screens and muon detectors, unconfirmed anomalies that hint at a far more complex reality hidden within the stone. These are the whispers in the data, the unresolved puzzles that keep archaeologists awake at night. Within the Great Pyramid alone, multiple scans have revealed smaller, undefined voids near the known chambers and deep within the foundation bedrock, spaces that do not align with any known corridor or relieving chamber. The Bent Pyramid and the Red Pyramid at Dosha show similar clusters of thermal and seismic anomalies, suggesting networks of rooms or structural features that we simply cannot yet interpret. Why are these potential chambers so difficult to confirm? The technology, while revolutionary, has its limits. Muon radiography provides a beautiful, broad-stroke image of a large void, but it struggles to resolve the fine details of smaller spaces. Ground-penetrating radar can be confused by natural fissures in the bedrock or by the complex, dense packing of the core masonry, creating false positives or blurring the edges of a real chamber into an unreadable smudge. Each of these unconfirmed signals represents a question without an answer. Is that faint thermal signature a small, sealed storeroom, or simply a pocket of sand that settled differently 4,000 years ago? Does that radar anomaly point to a deliberate chamber, or is it the echo of a long collapsed construction ramp that was sealed inside the pyramid as it rose? This collective mystery of the unconfirmed reminds us that our current list of 30 is not a final tally, but a starting point. The pyramids are not static museums, but dynamic puzzles. They are waiting. They hold their deepest secrets in reserve, protected by their own immense scale and the limitations of our own tools, patiently awaiting the next generation of silent, seeing technologies to finally ask the right questions and hear their long-held answers. These hidden chambers remained invisible for millennia, not because they were perfectly concealed, but because we simply did not have the eyes to see them. The real story behind these discoveries is a revolution in vision, a shift from the archaeologist's trowel to a suite of technologies that can peer through solid stone without leaving a scratch. This is the science of seeing without breaking, and it has completely rewritten the rules of exploration. Muography, for instance, relies on cosmic rays constantly showering our planet. Think of these muons as cosmic rain, trillions of which pass through you and everything around you every second. Just as an X-ray reveals the shadows of bones inside your body, scientists place sensitive muon detectors inside a pyramid. The denser the stone, the more muons are blocked. When the detectors see a surprising stream of these particles coming from a specific direction, it reveals a hidden void, a shadow in the stone, just like the cathedral-sized big void. Then there is ground-penetrating radar, which works like a sophisticated fish finder for the Earth. It sends pulses of radio energy into the ground and listens for the echoes as they bounce off different materials. A solid block of limestone returns one kind of signal, while an empty chamber or a fissure returns a distinctly different echo, painting a ghostly image of what lies beneath. Infrared thermography adds another layer of sight. It reads the surface temperature of the stone. As the sun heats the pyramid during the day and it cools at night, hidden voids affect how that heat travels. An empty space behind a wall will cause a slight but detectable temperature difference on the surface, revealing its outline in a thermal photograph. Finally, 3D laser scanning captures the visible world with impossible precision. Scanners fire millions of laser points at a surface, measuring the exact time it takes for each beam to return. This builds a digital twin of the monument, a perfect 3D model where every crack, angle, and imperfection is recorded. This model becomes the base map, the known world onto which the secrets revealed by muons and radar are projected. This toolkit has transformed archaeology from a destructive science reliant on digging and luck into a precise digital detective story. We are no longer just breaking ground, we are listening to the whispers of the stones, deciphering the faint signatures of the past with a clarity our ancestors could never have dreamed possible, proving that the greatest discoveries often come from looking, not just digging. So why did the pyramid builders go to such incredible lengths to hide entire rooms within their own creations? The answer is a powerful blend of the practical, the spiritual, and the protective, all woven into the very fabric of their world. On one level, these chambers were masterpieces of engineering, vital for the pyramid's survival. Think of the massive relieving chambers stacked above the king's chamber. They were not built for ceremony, but as a brilliant hidden scaffold, a secret skeleton designed to redirect the crushing weight of millions of stone blocks and prevent the royal tomb from collapsing under its own immense glory. The recently discovered north face corridor served a similar purpose, a cleverly placed architectural shock absorber protecting the main entrance from gravitational pressures for millennia. Even the mysterious big void may have been, at its heart, a grand solution to a structural problem, a hidden space ensuring the grand gallery below it remained intact. This was practical genius locked in stone, yet the pyramids were far more than just tombs. They were cosmic engines for a king's divine journey. This is where the ritual purpose of the hidden chambers comes alive. The sealed serdab with its statue of the king's car, the star shafts pointed directly at Orion and the circumpolar stars, the symbolic boat pits holding a fleet for the afterlife. These were all meticulously crafted for an eternal voyage. A hidden chamber was not an empty room, it was a dedicated space for a specific spiritual function, a permanent, protected conduit connecting the pharaoh's soul to the gods. The sealed doors with copper handles in the queen's chamber shafts were not for any human hand, but were likely symbolic portals for the king's ba or spirit to pass through on its ascent to the stars. The very act of hiding these spaces enhanced their sacred power, separating the divine mechanics of the afterlife from the profane world of the living. And this leads to the third, more desperate reason for secrecy: fear. the ancient builders lived in a constant race against the greed of tomb robbers. This fear is etched into the stone itself, in the form of dummy corridors that lead to dead ends and the sprawling, confusing labyrinth beneath the step pyramid, a maze designed to baffle and trap any intruder. Blocking the looter's tunnel with a perfect, permanent seal was an act of restoration, a fight to reclaim stolen sanctity. Even the magical amulets in the high priest's crypt and the foundation deposits buried at the pyramid's corners were a form of spiritual protection, sealing the monument with spells against malevolent forces. Ultimately, these 30 hidden chambers reveal a civilization building for two worlds at once. They needed their stone mountains to stand physically for eternity, but they also needed them to function perfectly on a spiritual plane, guiding and guarding a god-king through the perils of the afterlife. The hidden chambers were the invisible, essential wiring of this entire cosmic machine, the silent, sacred heart of the pyramid's eternal purpose. From the echoing cathedral of the big void to the silent, sealed doors with their copper handles, the journey through these 30 hidden chambers has reshaped our entire understanding of the ancient world. Each discovery, from the cosmic star shafts to the humble worker's storeroom, shatters an old assumption. We once saw the pyramids as grand, static tombs, silent monuments to long-dead kings. Now we know they are dynamic puzzles, buzzing with hidden engineering, sacred geometry, and the quiet echoes of spiritual journeys. They are not just structures of stone, but complex machines for the afterlife, with every concealed corridor and forgotten chamber serving a vital purpose both for the earth and the heavens. The story of the pyramids is still being written, with every new scan and every whispered theory adding another line. What do you think is the next great discovery waiting to be found? Share your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe as we continue to uncover history's greatest secrets together.